It's 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, get the door shut. She's going to be so kind to do that for us, and then we'll get into it. Good morning, everybody. My name is Vic Mitchell, and I will be doing the seminar today, how gaming helps veterans with mental health issues. A couple of things. Like I said, my name is Vic Mitchell. I am a Navy veteran. I was a corpsman in the United States Navy. For those that know what that means, good. For those that don't, it basically means I was a medic. But instead of being a regular medic, I was a corpsman, which made me really, really good at what I did. I was the old school corpsman, not like some of the corpsmen that we have today that have specialties. I did everything. I have been playing gaming for over 40 years of my life. That is a majority of it. I started out with an Atari in my hand and moved up to Dungeons and Dragons, played things like Chainmail, GURPS. For some reason, I got a little insane and played Rollmaster for about 7.8 minutes before I realized I didn't have a PhD in math and stopped doing that. Gaming has been an integral part of my life on several different levels. I suffer from dyslexia. So when I was very young, that was challenging, but gaming, especially D&D, helped me overcome that particular obstacle. You have to read, you have to do math, you have to be able to recognize several different things that helped me train my mind to be able to expand my imagination. When I joined the military and came to the military, some of you may or may not know, even though one of the biggest aspects that they do for being in the military is they break you down from an individual into a part of a unit. But even then, you can feel pretty alone. You might have brothers and sisters that you can trust. However, when it comes to that personal, internal aspect, that part of you that you try to hold on, it's hard to connect sometimes. You know, you got Ford people and Chevrolet people, and you got people that like the coast and those that like the mountains and those that like it hot and those that like it cold. Well, in gaming, you got people who like Magic the Gathering, you got people who like D&D, you got people who like the tabletop strategy games like Warhammer, so on and so forth. And gaming actually allows you to find that sub-niche, so to speak. And it helped me. I found people that played Magic the Gathering. I found people who played D&D and made some very, very good friends in those years. And then, of course, the inevitable happened, that you wake up one day and you realize that you don't have to wear the exact same clothes as everybody else. You don't have to get your hair cut just like everybody else. But unfortunately, you feel disconnected and alone. When you leave the military service, whether it's by choice or by medical boarding or whatever, you lose a whole lot. It doesn't matter whether you planned it or not, you lose. You lose your community. You lose your friends. You lose your job. You lose your house. You lose a source of income. And it hits veterans in different ways. I was med boarded out. I did not choose to leave. So I got thrown out in the world. And for those that are wondering about that, I had my med board on a Monday, and they let me out of the Navy by Thursday. I was married. I had 3 small children. I had no prospects. 0. And I got tossed out into the world with all the problems that I had and no way to be able to figure out what I was going to do next. And I'm pretty sure that there's probably at least one veteran in here that probably has felt that as well. Even though I was married and I had children, I had my family, I felt disconnected, I felt alone, I felt separated. And it took me a very long time before I realized that I needed to do something to get out of the place that I was in, and gaming was one of those things that I got back into. And through that gaming, I wound up meeting a lot of people. I wound up re-engaging. And during that time, I also found myself changing as well. I found myself healing, I guess would be a good way of saying it. And so I said to myself, if this can help me, this can help other people as well. And so I literally at that point began to observe and watch. I pride myself as a forever game master. I love to be a dungeon master and a game master. I love building worlds. I love building campaigns. That's because I'm a fourth dimensional thinker. That is amazing when you are a dungeon master, because what is the number one skill that anyone needs as a game master and a dungeon master? Anybody? Improvisation, absolutely. So when you say, Well, I'm going to tell him I'm going to hop on the back of that dragon, stab him in the eye with my toe, and then whisper sweet Dixie in his ear. I'm going to go, unfortunately, the dragon doesn't speak common, has no idea, thinks you're moaning sex language, and you're in trouble. Roll for initiative. Can't do it. And it sucks. But it's also loads and loads of fun because my brain will actually throw things out at me that I did not know was in there. And that's amazing as well. And that is one of the points that we're going to talk about when it comes to gaming and veterans and so on and so forth. Now, I'm primarily going to be using Dungeons and Dragons for the topic today. The reason why is twofold. Number one, it's primarily what I play. So it's for two reasons. Number one is because it's the one that I'm most familiar with, even though I do use several others. I use D&D. The second reason is because over the last past 40 years of D&D, they have produced a myriad of books and things like that that I've been able to utilize for several different niche things that I have needed for players and veterans and things like that over the years. Even though a lot of other companies are catching up, like Pathfinder, Pathfinder is beginning to expand some of its base as well, really getting out into those like nooks and crannies of gaming, backgrounds, team skills and work-togethers and buildings and all this other stuff. And there's a third reason: I'm not rich. So there's a lot of expensive books out there, and I'm slowly, I'm going to get them at some point. But anyway, so I'm going to primarily talk about D&D, but please understand that if you are more familiar with something like Pathfinder or maybe Call of Cthulhu, that's another good one that I find that vets absolutely love because the slow descent into madness is very familiar to some of us. But anything will work. But that's primarily where we're going to go. The primary challenges for veterans when you game that I have noticed over the years, the big one is social anxiety. Vets generally have a tendency to not really want to engage, especially with individuals that they don't know. A good number of us, for various reasons, whether it's PTSD or maybe even anger management, having social anxiety is a huge thing. Even doing something like a con can take a lot out of a vet. The next challenge I touched on is anger management. That's another challenge for some vets. And if anyone here knows, anger in a vet, about 80% of the time is a random thing. It's not like they plan to be angry. It's not like they wake up and go, I'm going to be pissed at the world today. I can't wait until somebody lets their dog whiz on my grass because I'm going to come out of my yard like a pit bull and tear their head off. It just happens. It's one of those unregulated things. PTSD, that's another challenge. This can take the form of many, many ways. For some, it's auditory. For some, it's visual, sound. It could be a specific issue or maybe a particular challenge. Maybe they don't like to drive. Everybody's got something. Another challenge is physical and mental limitations. Maybe they're an amputee. They don't have a leg, or they don't have legs. Maybe they don't have an arm. Maybe they're missing an eye. Maybe they had a traumatic brain injury, so they speak a little slower. They don't engage as much as possible. Things like that. The last one is probably the biggest one for most veterans. And does anybody here want to guess what that is? It's our bluntness. We have a very, very dark humor. I'll give you an example for those that are wondering and don't know. A term that me and my buddies like to use when someone asks me how I'm doing, when I look down and I say I'm thinking about going shopping for cherry flavored gun holes so the muzzle will taste good in my mouth before I pull the trigger. Now, for some of you, you're like, wow, and there's some vets in here going, I'm using that. That's what I'm talking about. Now, as most vets will tell you, that is not when you need to be concerned. It's when we stop talking. It's when we stop engaging. It's when we stop using sarcasm. It's when we stop using humor, regardless of how dark that it is, that you need to worry. And that is a big sign. I'll throw out a little bit of a depression curve here just because it rolls with it. In case that y'all don't know, 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Some of the top reasons, or the top reason for that, is mental health. It's a mental health issue. So, and most of that is because they feel like they're not being heard or they're not being helped. So, another reason why gaming helps. So, now those are the challenges. Now we're going to roll over to why gaming helps. It creates and promotes social interaction. It gets them out of the house. It gets them from sitting at home, drinking a fifth of Jack, thinking about everybody that they lost, thinking about the job that they lost, thinking about how many millions of rounds that they got to squeeze off at the range to make things disappear 500 yards away, all that stuff. There's some videos on TikTok and Instagram and a few other things that some vets have put out there. It basically shows them riding on the back of a helicopter, listening to Fortunate Son, and it says, you go from this, and then it cuts away to sitting in traffic. Now, for most of those that aren't veterans, you don't understand how much of a change that is, but for those of us, it is. Playing gaming, whether it's online, D&D, card games, Warhammer tabletop strategy games, it gets veterans out and gets them socially interacting. Most of those things you can't play alone. So that they get engaged and they talk to people and they begin to build in their brain, they begin to build those bridges once again. Not only that, but here's a little thing about gaming. Most gaming you can pick up. There's no long-term. You can do short-term gaming, long-term gaming. So for some veterans, once they find the thing that they like, whether it's online gaming, whether it's D&D, where it is, they can pick up a game and meet a group of 4 or 5 people, interact with them for a few hours, and then never have to see these people again. And for some folks, that's great. You know, you don't have to worry about being judged. You don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. And you never have to worry about whether or not someone's going to send you an email or send you a text message or pick up the phone if you call and stuff like that. So it's good. But for some vets, they want that. They want that long-term connection, because one of the things in the military is you wind up going to a new unit and you step off and you get there and you meet your friends, and within 3 months, you've made friends for life. There are people that you serve with that you never thought in a million years during that time in service as a veteran that you never thought you'll do another damn thing without them by your side until they're not by your side anymore. And we lose them for various reasons. We either lose them to the enemy, we lose them to sicknesses, we lose them to just disconnection because we got out, they stayed in, we left. It's a big thing. So social interaction, getting you out, getting a veteran out. The next thing is it provides a distraction to everyday challenges and everyday things. It breaks that mold, so to speak. You know, if a veteran wakes up every day, brushes his teeth, shaves, drinks the same cup of coffee out of the exact same cup, gets in the car, drives the exact same route, gets to work, does the exact same job, eats the exact same peanut butter and jelly sandwich, finishes out the day, gets in the car, stops at the exact same McDonald's, orders the exact same number 2, gets in his car, blah, blah, blah. This ties back into number 1, but it provides a distraction, because everything that I just said can be an immense challenge to a vet. Anybody, and not just veterans, and please don't think that I'm throwing it. That's why I have 2 of these things. I have the mental health and gaming, which is tomorrow, but this is the vet focused one. But for veterans, that can be a challenge. At the height of my issues that I was having before I was able to get the proper treatment that I needed, I would wake up in the morning and I would cry because I woke up that day. I had to face another day, and that made me incredibly sad and depressed. I was going to have another day of pain. I was going to have another day of disconnection. And for many vets that I've talked to over the years, they've had that same experience. And that sucks. That truly sucks. So gaming can provide a distraction. The third thing that it can provide is a safe environment. When you game, or when you create a game, you can create a world and a place, right, where somebody can come in with ideas, emotions. They're allowed to expand and not be judged. And we're going to get into a little bit about that, about how to do that a little bit later. Not deep dive into it, but just a little bit. One of the biggest challenges that some vets have is that when they come out into the civilian world, the way that they handle things, the way they talk about things, the way they approach challenges, when you go out into the civilian world, it's a huge no-no. You know, if someone tells you there's a meeting at 8 o'clock, well, for most people, it's like, well, I'll show up at 7:55, 7:58. You know, I'll get a good seat and I'll sit down. When you're a veteran, you're there at 6:25. Why? Because you had formation at 9, you were told to be there at 7, and you're standing out in the sun. So punctuality is a big thing for veterans. So when you create an environment where there's no judging, when you create an environment that encourages all types of interaction, thought, right, where even though what someone may say is not the norm, it's not something to be judged or said, well, that's just crazy, you know, or anything like that. You can create that when you game. Whether it's tabletop role-playing game, whether it's anything else, you can create that atmosphere. And it's not that hard to do. This next one ties into the safe environment, ability to create a space where a player can express thoughts, ideas, and emotions. That sort of ties into the safe environment, but this also ties into being able to give them the feeling that it's not just the game that a veteran can feel like they can be themselves around. It's the people that play that game. It's the players. It's the game master. It's the DM. And the last thing is probably one of the most important. It's to inspire creativity and imagination. Like I said, veterans wind up locking themselves into that part of our mind of bad experience or the things that we feel that we lost. It's this little bubble in our brains. And the problem with that little bubble is nothing changes in that bubble. Nothing. The same terrible memory that created that bubble is the same terrible memory that will exist 20 years from now if you stay in that bubble. It'll never change. That's why addiction is such a big thing. Because addiction doesn't help you work through your problems, doesn't help you get out of that bubble. It just sort of numbs you to it. You're able to walk through the landscape of that bubble because you're numb. You're able to deal with what's in that bubble. But it doesn't help you solve how to get out of that bubble. And gaming actually helps. Whether, like I said, whether it's D&D, whether it's Warhammer, whether it's Magic the Gathering, it inspires your creativity. It opens up your mind. It allows you to interact with people. You meet new people. So it breaks out. It inspires that creativity, and inspires imagination. And it takes you out of that bubble. Regardless of what that bubble is. For some vets, it's a bubble that sits over here, and it comes over, and it becomes center focus, and then they can slide it over to the side. Some vets, they're always in that bubble. Some vets, they've moved stuff from outside into the bubble. How to make gaming helpful. Number one, learn about your players, your veterans, and your co-players. Learn about them. Engage with them. Talk to them. Find out what it is that they do. Find out what makes them think. You know, you don't have to dig deep. You know, hey, what was your first pet's name? Who was your first best friend in elementary? You know, all that crap. But just engage. Be honest. Be open. Be raw. Share some of your own stuff. It just to show that you're willing to be a little vulnerable first can help out a long way, especially with vets. Trust me, the biggest critic of a veteran when he has problems is the veteran themselves. They know. We know. We know how we're broken. And we already feel pretty bad about that. We don't need anyone else making us feel worse. So learn your players. Next one, create worlds with varied aspects. So when I say that, it goes back to that create imagination and inspiration and creativity and all of that. When you create games, Let's take Magic the Gathering. We're going to step out of D&D and go into Magic the Gathering. How many people here know what Magic the Gathering is? Okay, good. I've got a room full of geeks just like me. Okay. As you know, when you build a deck in Magic the Gathering, you can build a deck hundreds of different ways. You can build an all-white deck. You can build a black and white deck. You can build a red and green deck. You can build something. I haven't played since Weatherlight, so y'all just going to have to forgive. So when you sit down and you're going to play, whether it's in a tournament or maybe you're just getting together to play with friends or whatever, playing somebody, let's say that you sit down and you play with a vet, and you're playing with that vet and he loses. He loses terribly, right? You annihilate him and he's pissed about it. What do you think that you should do? Tell him how you beat him. Tell him how to beat you next time. You want to know why? Because if we were in the military and we were sitting down and we were playing and that's what happened, I would look across to my buddy on the other side and go, I whipped your ass. You know how I whipped your ass? This is how I whipped your ass. And we tell them exactly how we whipped their ass. But you're not wearing a uniform. You didn't serve a day of your life. But yet you're going to show a little bit of that openness. You're going to create a new varied aspect. When you do D&D, you don't want to make a campaign with nothing but combat. Make a campaign that's got a little bit of politics in it. Make combat with a little bit of stealth in it. Make a combat with no talking. You look at your players and you go, this entire session, y'all are infiltrating something not a single one of you could talk. You can't even talk now. How are you going to do it? You pull them, everyone else, without making them the center of attention. You created a scenario right where they can be the one to shine. Without even knowing it. There's a show called Futurama. I don't know if anyone here ever watched it before, but there's an episode right where Bender's floating through space and he winds up becoming God or godlike. And he winds up meeting God. And he asks God how he does it. And he goes, well, when you do things right, people wonder if you did anything at all. That's what it's like to be a game master when you deal with individuals that have challenges like that. You create scenarios that create organic outcomes that winds up bringing people together. It's one of the main things that I tell people to do, regardless of whether they're dealing with vets. Maybe they're dealing with an autistic individual. Maybe they're dealing with somebody with a traumatic brain injury. Maybe they're dealing with somebody who has experienced a terrible thing and they're very cloistered and internal and everything like that. That's one of the biggest things that I tell them to is to create a situation that will generate an organic outcome that will work regardless of whether they inject themselves or not. Everyone else can still do it and everyone has a sense of accomplishment, including them. And that's imperative for veterans. Why is that imperative for veterans? Well, we're going to get into that right now. What do you think boot camp was? Boot camp, basic, whatever you want to call it, 80% of it is mental, 20% of it is physical. Everything that they do in basic training is built to reorganize your brain to take you from being this self-centered teenager who is used to asking mommy for money to go to Starbucks to an individual that can field strip a weapon of war. And on top of that, everybody that's in that line with you, everybody in that unit depends upon you and you depend upon them. And if you don't do your job, they can't do theirs. And if they don't do their job, that you can't do yours. And blah, blah, blah. And it builds up from there. I'm sort of like Reader's Digest versioning this, so please. So for veterans, that's how it is. Because I'm getting ready to throw something out there that probably some of you know and some of you don't know. Being a veteran is a culture. Just like the German culture, just like American culture, just like Canadian culture, we have our own traditions, we have our own languages, we have our own politics, we have our own system of commerce, everything else. We are a culture in and of ourselves. And just like if you stepped off of a boat or a plane in another country, one of the biggest things that'll go to people in that country is if you do what? You learn about their culture. You don't judge what they do. Veteranism is a culture. And when you approach it as a culture, it goes a long way to helping understand a veteran and how to include them, especially when it comes to gaming with mental health aspects. This isn't really right where some of you thought this whole seminar was going to go, did you? Some of you are like, well, I wasn't expecting this. And some of you are like, this is exactly what I expected. Some of you are like, I'm not even sure I'm in the right room. One of the reasons why I use D&D, as I said before, is they have several supplements and things that get added to it. One of the things that I found was incredibly useful was the 3.5 edition of the Player Handbook 2. Player Handbook 2 had a section in it for team building and team skills. It was basically a section right where you could have 2 or more of your party members, if they practiced and trained doing certain skills or certain activities together, when they would go out into a campaign, they could use those additional skills to get bonuses when they did certain things. So when you use that type of mechanic, right where you say, if you work together, you talk, you figure it out, you come to a conclusion, you create that bed of organic possibility for creativity and inspiration for veterans. Do you see how I'm sort of connecting everything in like this web? If anyone has a question or anything, please raise your hand. You can interrupt me. The last thing is, well, there's 2 more things actually. You want to cater to your players and the party's needs. And that goes back to learn about your players, okay? If you have a player, especially a veteran, that doesn't like loud noises, maybe you shouldn't stand up and start screaming out draconic because this gigantic black dragon just appeared to be in front of the party. You know, maybe they don't like surprises or shocks. You go around the corner and boom, you got blah, blah, blah. Yeah, probably shouldn't do that. Observe and listen are the 2 biggest things that I like to tell people, especially when it comes to vets. Observe and listen. Most vets will tell you everything that you need to know if you do those 2 things. It took me a very long time to get to the point of right where I'm here right now, and even now I'm not fixed, not by a long shot. It took me a very long time to get here. The very first thing I had to choose to do, and this is right where I told you that we were going to go blue, the very first thing I had to choose to do was unfuck myself. I had to stand up and say, I'm going to unfuck myself. Because you can go out to anywhere that you want to go and get helps, tools, books, self-help, everything else. But until you decide to actually use it, until you actually wake up one day and say, I'm tired of this crap, you're stuck. So, when you gaming provides that bed for organic growth to help people, not just veterans, but anybody, be able to do that. A lot of vets don't like to be embarrassed. I don't know if anyone here has ever played D&D, but you could probably say about 25% of D&D sessions are people being embarrassed. But when you wind up having fun, you let your guard down. When you wind up being vulnerable and you're showing other people that you can be vulnerable without judging, it helps people. It helps people tremendously. Vets, especially people with mental health issues. Vets, like I said, people with traumatic stress, people with brain injuries, autistic individuals, everybody. Veterans are a little more, I use this word not to be ugly, so please don't go out and start writing articles and get me canceled. Veterans have a tendency to be a little bit more emotional volatile, not physically volatile, but emotionally volatile. And the reason why is because we went from a place right where we didn't have to guard our emotions. We have to learn, veterans learn to do that. People who also, other people as well that experience a lot of trauma have a very hard time with their emotions, whether it's expressing it, whether it's expressing themselves, that they become guarded for other reasons. It's the same cake, but a different recipe. A veteran will have a chocolate cake recipe for PTSD, but civilians will have a vanilla cake or German chocolate cake recipe for theirs. One isn't more important than the other, and it's not the different table, it's just a different cake. When you start looking at things like that, you come to realize that you don't separate things. It's it's the it's the same cake, just a different recipe. You have to figure out: do I add 3 eggs, or is this just going to be a 2-egg recipe? Four cups of flour, or 3. So when you look at it like that, it makes it a little bit easier. The last thing is campaign with a vet intense experience. Now, some of you are saying, what in God's name are you talking about? A vet intense experience. I actually played with this for about 5 years with 7 different groups. And man, did I screw this up until I got it right. Oh boy, I think I traumatized more people than helped. But basically, I built a campaign right where everybody got drafted. There was an invading force from another plane. This is D&D for those that aren't keeping up. There was an invading force from another plane, and they were regular everyday people, but they got drafted because they needed an army to fight these mofos that were pouring through these portals. And so they got drafted, and guess what they had to do? They had to go to basic. Then they got done with basic, then they had to go to their individual schools to learn what class they were going to be. I started them at level 0. They were basically commoners. And I dropped their rear ends into basic training and took them from there. Why? Because I had a group of 7 people. 3 of them were vets. 2 of those vets I had to drag out of their house by their ears to get them to sit at that D&D table. They did not want to play D&D. They wanted to sit at home and they wanted to drink and they wanted to smoke. But I did. I drug them out and started to do it. And they went to basic. And man, you want to talk about watching people change. I saw such a tremendous turnaround in those 3 guys. And the other 4 players that played never got left behind. The other 3, the 3 vets, drugged those 4 through. They taught them stuff that you would probably, as a veteran, you probably wouldn't share, but they did. I played the drill instructor, and then I played the high major, and then I played a high general. So I was always the bad guy. I was the one that always came in and made things, and they were the unit trying to keep it together, and they had to help each other through it. Because they had to roll for Constitution when they PT'd. They had to roll when they had to roll intelligence when they were learning all new types of skills and everything else. And of course they failed, so they had to learn how to work together as a unit. They had to do that. And by the time they got done with basic and they went off to their individual schools and became their classes, they were ready to play, man. I had 3 vets and 4 civvies. And those 2 vets that I told you I had to drag them out by their ear to bring them to that table, I couldn't keep them out of my damn text messages to save my life. Because all they wanted to do was send me ideas for their characters. They were level 3 players and they were sending me plans for level 17, as if I was going to let them live that long. It was adorable. Every time I got, I think at 15th level, I'm going to take this skill, and I'd go, yeah, okay. That campaign ran for 7 months. They made it to 11th level, and then they went on a self-chosen suicide mission. That was the weirdest game I think I ever played. But I literally created an experience that force bonded a group of people that were across several different spectrums. I know that sounds terrible, but I sort of built that campaign for the 2 vets that I had to drag out there. I didn't build it for the other 5. I built it for those 2. But because I'm so damn good at what I do, I was able to make sure that the other 5 enjoyed it just as much as the other 2. But I did that because I knew about my players. I could create a world with several aspects. I was able to cater to everybody's need. And I added that 5th optional thing of a vet intense experience. It brought everybody up to speed, so to speak. We're going to get into the point now right where we're going to start downturning it. My last section is do's and don'ts. Now, when I say these do's and don'ts, please understand when I tell you these do's and don'ts, these are my do's and don'ts. I recommend them as do's and don'ts for other people. You may want to change them. You may want to alter them, entirely up to you. Just like the rest of the seminar that I gave you, this is just my experience to throw out ideas. I'm creating a bed of organic thought. I want all of you to go out and be better than me at this. I want you to go forth and spread the seeds and, come up with a multi-million-dollar gaming plan so I can sit down and go, oh, that looks like my idea. I'm glad someone's rich from it. Patent pending, patent pending. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I know what I'm telling you probably isn't earth-shattering by any stretch of the imagination, but the way I'm telling it to you is where it matters to. Do's and don'ts. Don't force feed what isn't wanted. All right. If you have somebody who just isn't getting into it, it doesn't matter whether it's the game or maybe it's the story or maybe it's teaching, whatever it is, don't force feed it. Don't constantly say to them, you'll get it. It's like beer. The more you drink, the more you'll like. Don't do it. Okay? And if you're paying attention, like I told you, observe and listen, you're going to know when it's it's more trouble than it's worth to the visceral, I don't want to do this. Trust me, you're going to know, especially if you're paying attention. Okay? So don't try to force feed. Number 2, stay away from pointed agendas. Okay? Those can be anything, politics, social issues, in any of that stuff. I would say religion, but when you play a lot of games nowadays, there's a religious aspect that's tied into it, and that's fine. Well, I'm not talking about gaming religion or gaming politics. Okay, I'm talking about real world stuff. Don't drag that into games. Okay, don't do it, because it's a third rail. It really is. You could have 8 people at your table. Half of them could be on one side of an issue. The other half could be on the other side of the issue. And it only takes one person to have a visceral hatred for the other side to ruin everything for everybody. So just don't play with that rail. Stay away from it. Next one. Do not focus directly on issues. If someone is not engaging, someone's not being very verbal, flank that shit. Don't meet it head on. If someone's sitting down there and they're disengaged and they're not really engaging, don't look at them and go, we've been sitting over here for 20 minutes, I haven't said a damn thing. Don't do that. Don't. Flank it. Flank it. If someone's not sitting down and they're not doing it, then in your mind, you need to be cooking up something right where everyone's got to have an opinion on something. Come up with a situation right where all the players have to say or involve themselves in some way, shape, or form to get something done. And then that way, instead of saying they need to do something, the situation needs them to do it. The game needs them to do it. The campaign needs them to do it. Not you, not the other people on the other side of the table, but the situation, the game, the campaign, the thing they came and sat in the seat for. That needs them to do it. You flank it. And it can be that, and it can be a myriad of other things. But don't bulldoze straight for it, especially with vets. All right? The vets are the pinnacle of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, when we get our heels dug in on something. And the only thing that you can do is surrender, and trust me, it ain't going to be us. It ain't going to be us. At least not at first. Last but not least, do engage your players to make sure the story and the style is engaging. Talk to them. Pay attention, observe, and listen. If you just had a session and everyone seemed to really enjoy themselves and they're like, God, I can't wait until next week, and everyone's standing up and they're waiting to do it, when it's all said and done, send them a message afterwards, especially the vet. If you know that the vet is struggling, send a message, go, hey man, I'm glad you had a great time. Is there anything more I can do? Is there anything that you'd like to see? Is there something that your character wants to do? Engage them a little bit about it. And then engage other people as well. Engage everybody, of course, but that shows a lot of vets that you're not just interested in them when you're face to face. And for some vets, it takes us a while. Now, mind you, I'm not going to go to a ball. I'm not going to go to a dance. It's not my bag. I have no coronation whatsoever. But I am a lot more open to many, many things. And it's because of learning that the people that I engage with won't think that I am evil incarnate because either things that I've done or failed to do, and so on and so forth. So this is the example that I give to people. Imagine that you have a 5-gallon bucket of beautiful crystal clear water. And sitting in the bottom of that bucket are these beautiful, flawless diamonds, the most beautiful things that you've ever seen in your whole life. But sitting on top of that water is 2 inches of this thick, disgusting sludge, right? And the only way that you can get the diamonds is if you stick your hand through that sludge, contaminate that water, and pull out that diamond. Now, that diamond doesn't lose its value, does it? But it's covered with that nasty sludge. That's what it's like. For a lot of veterans, that's what it's like. I can take that analogy if you want, or you could tell me it's a stupid analogy. But either way, that's what it's like for me. I still have beautiful children, beautiful grandchildren. I have a good job, though God, I wish it'd pay more, but it's government. What can you expect? I have good friends, family. I have all that. And every single bit of it is marked with that sludge. And gaming helped me clean that sludge off. It helped me realize that there was something under it. I had to work a little bit for it. I had to choose to unfold myself to get there. But if you look at it from that particular point of view, or like a view like it, a different cake, same cake, different recipe, like I said earlier, that'll help you out a whole lot, especially when you deal with veterans, or maybe you're dealing with somebody who's not a veteran but has dealt with other types of stressful healthcare type of situations. If you look at it at that point of view, it might help you out a little bit to understand a little bit more and be able to help you figure out ways to approach gaming and help them with it, whether you're introducing them to it, whether you're helping them through it, either way. I'm pretty sure not a lot of you've probably watched West Wing, but there's a character in West Wing. His name is Josh. Josh gets shot during an assassination attempt on the President of the United States, and he winds up getting PTSD from it. And he starts having flashbacks. And Leo, who is his boss, brings in a therapist to talk to him about it because he didn't realize he was going through it. Josh didn't realize. And Leo told him this story when Josh asked him, why did you do this? And this was a story that Leo told him. He said there was a guy walking down the street one day and he fell into a deep hole and he couldn't get out. And so a priest walks by and he says, Father, can you help me? I fell in this hole. I need a way out. The priest wrote a prayer on a piece of paper, dropped it in the hole and said, good luck, son, and kept walking. A few moments later, a cop comes walking by. He says, hey, officer, I've fallen down this hole. Can you help me? And the officer writes him a ticket for loitering and throws it down in the hole and says, hey, you be sure to pay that, and kept walking. A fireman comes by with a ladder and he's like, hey, man, I'm down here in this hole. Can you help me? And the fireman looks down and he's like, sorry, I can't. There's a fire. It's more important than you. I got to take this ladder. And he kept walking. So he's stuck down there for about an hour and all of a sudden a friend of his walks by, Joe. He looks down the hole and goes, Joe, hey, can you help me? I'm stuck down here. And Joe says, no problem. He jumps into the hole with him. And the guy's like, what the hell are you doing, Joe? He goes, now you're stuck down here with me. And Joe goes, yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out. We have to jump down the hole. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I hope most of you will jump down that hole as well.